Welcome back to Hannah's Harvest. I'm out in the garden, it's late afternoon, and I want to get some work and planting done. This time of year, it's really difficult to have the energy to continue with the garden. The garden is looking hot and tired, but I don't want to give up just yet. And I hope in this video you'll be encouraged to plant some more things in your garden, even if it's hot and you're getting tired of growing. So my goals today are, first, I want to clean up a couple things that need to be pulled out, and then I want to replant with some new seeds that are really quick to harvest. So I'm excited to have you join me today. Here's a realistic view of the garden at the end of the day. The plants are hot and tired, and I normally like to water in the evenings. That way the plants have all night to soak up the moisture and it doesn't evaporate very quickly. But the sun is going down in this area of the garden, so it's a good time for me to work, and I'll plant some seeds before I water so they'll be watered in nicely. Here's the first area I want to tackle. I have some zinnias that just need to be pulled out. They're not doing well. This summer squash is really languishing in the heat. It hasn't produced any viable squash. In fact, because of the heat, the squash has been drying up and it's just looking really sad. And I recently planted some new squash on the other side of my garden, so I think I'm going to go ahead and pull this out because it's not successful. And I'll use this area to plant something new. Another thing I want to clean up while we're at it is this marigold. So it doesn't have any stems toward the base. It's long and leggy. It hasn't bloomed all summer long, and I'm really unhappy with how it looks here, so I'm just going to pull that out. We'll open up that space for something that will be successful here. So I have a couple bare spots in my beds that I want to fill up. I also have this sunflower that is completely dried and dying back, and I'm ready to cut it off at the base. It can be really difficult to continue in the garden when things get hot and dry and your plants are looking sad. But I want to encourage you that this is an awesome time to plant new things. Even cold weather crops can do well in the summer if you start them out underneath plants that'll offer them some protection. In order to know how much time you have in your growing season, take a look at your frost dates. I know that in Arkansas, northwest Arkansas where I live, my first expected frost is normally toward the end of October, so I have all the way until then to harvest before the frost. And especially in August, when the garden is kind of winding down, I try to plant the quickest to harvest varieties to have the most success. That way, if the conditions are a little bit unfavorable, I'll have some extra wiggle room just in case. The first seed I'm going to be putting in the ground today is some more German giant radishes. These seeds are ready in as soon as 30 days, and in the summertime they do really well as an understory plant. I'll plant them underneath and between some taller vegetables I already have growing. The next seed I'm going to plant today is bouquet dill, and I want to plant dill to use in making pickles and different canning recipes. And dill is ready to harvest as soon as 45 to 55 days after it sprouts. So I should have plenty of time to get some dill seeds and leaves in this time of year. And the last thing I have, I'm growing something new. This is Bok Choy, and it does best in a cooler climate. It only needs 45 to 50 days to mature, and so in order to give it a little bit cooler temperatures, I'm going to plant it again as an understory plant, just like I'll do my radishes. This I think I'm going to plant underneath my tomatoes so they have more shade and it isn't quite as hot for them. I'm going to start by planting the Bok Choy, and the seed pack recommends planting it early spring or fall. And since I'm in northwest Arkansas, I am good to plant July through August for a fall harvest. I also notice it says 18-inch spacing, and because I'm trying to maximize my small space, I am going to plant them closer to 6 inches apart apart and we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna plant about 2 seeds per hole. Since this is brand new seed, we should have good germination. And I'm trying to plant in a little bit of a pattern so that when the seeds come up, I will know what I planted, what it is. If you're someone who, like me, is in a temporary growing space, we are living in a rental right now, and we don't know how long we'll be at this house. So growing quick things allows me to have a garden while not needing the entire summer or 3 or 4 months to wait before I harvest. It'd be really disappointing to plant things and then have to move before I get to harvest them. Okay, next up we have the German giant radishes. And the seed packet recommends plant spacing of 2 to 3 inches. And I actually have radishes already planted here, and I'm harvesting them as they're ready. So I'm just going to tuck in a couple more next to these. These seeds are a little bit larger, a little bit easier to plant. So something else that's helpful about these quick crops is I think they're really good for beginning and new gardeners, because you don't have to keep the plant alive for a very long time in order to have a harvest. I think it's really good for people who are testing out vegetable gardening for the first time, maybe trying to grow their own food for the first time. And once you harvest your first vegetables from the garden, at least for me, I was hooked on gardening. I only needed to harvest one thing to feel the joy of growing my own food. And so if you're someone who's interested in getting started in gardening, maybe try something like a radish that only takes 30 days to be ready to harvest. I think you'll find that it sparks a love of gardening in you, and it just gives you the joy of gardening without a whole lot of effort. These might also work well in a kid's garden, again, just for the ease of planting, the short time that it takes, and the ease of harvesting. I love how versatile radishes are. They're actually really good in like roasted root vegetables. They take on more of a sweetness than they do raw if you roast them. I've also used radishes raw on salads and things like that, and you can also pickle them much like you can beets. That's not something that I've done before, but I'm actually hoping to do that with these radishes that I harvest. So I will definitely keep you posted on how that goes. Radishes are also a very cheap seed, and there are a lot of varieties, a lot of neat varieties with pretty colors, and so I think it'd be something that you could definitely find something that piques your interest. And the last thing we're going to work on is our bouquet dill. I have a nice open space to plant these, and they're recommended to be spaced about 12 inches. I'm going to plant mine a little bit closer than that. I'm going to plant mine closer to about 6 inches and see how that does. And again, the reason that I'm spacing my plants a little bit closer is I'm trying to maximize my small garden space. I don't want any open, bare soil that's not being used to grow. So I know that because these things that I'm planting today prefer cooler temperatures, they'll need a lot of water to stay happy and healthy. So what I'll do is water twice a day. I'll water morning and night to keep them happy. Remember that if you're a beginning gardener or if you're close to the end of your season, you can plant things like radishes, bok choy, and dill. Some other things that you can plant if you have a shorter season or between 30 and 60 days left. Things like lettuce, spinach, and kale all have really quick harvesting times. Also, any herbs that you're harvesting, because you're not having to wait for a fruit or a vegetable to develop, you're just harvesting the leaves, that'll have a much quicker harvest time. You might also look for hybrid flowers like mini zinnias. I have some that were able to flower in just 30 days. So I really encourage you, if it's August and hot and you're worn out in your garden, don't give up, because there are still so many amazing things you can work on growing. The gardening season is not over yet. Something that might help you is, like me, choosing to water twice a day to keep things moist and happy. And again, I like to water early morning and in the evening when the sun is down. That gives the plants the most amount of time to absorb the water that they need. Something else that's really important this time of year is to remember to fertilize, to give your plants the food they need to be successful. The fertilizer that I use currently is Espoma Garden Tone, and they recommend fertilizing every month, so that's the schedule that I'm on right now. Well, I hope you're inspired to plant some new things in your garden. Thank you so much for joining me today as I planted some seeds, and I hope that you'll follow me along in the journey. In the next couple weeks, I'll be doing my August garden tour, and I'm hoping to see these seedlings up and thriving.